Hey guys, we made a video on the how-to playlist previously talking about how to do business in Japan, and that has resulted in a number of messages coming at different times from people asking about how to get a visa to come and start a business in Japan. So first of all, if you're here on a visa that allows you to do anything, then you'd be able to do a business, of course. So for example, if you're here on a spouse visa, so if you're married to a Japanese person, that allows you to do business here. You can pretty well do anything legal at all if you're on a spouse visa. There's no real limitations to what you can do for work or business or whatever. Or likewise, if you have permanent residency, but of course you don't get permanent residency straight off. Quite often, I think what these questions are that we're getting are questions from people who want to come to Japan and don't necessarily want to teach English or do one of the other things that usually foreigners do here, and they're trying to do something else. Or quite often they're wanting to start their own English school or something like that. To come here straight off, really the only way you're going to do that is if you come here on a spouse visa. So if you're already married to a Japanese person, you can come here directly on a spouse visa and start a business doing whatever you want to do, you know, whatever work you want to do or whatever business you want to start. Other than that, because of course the permanent residency isn't a visa, it's a status, and you won't get that unless you've been here for at least five or 6 years minimum, gainfully employed. So you can't come here and get permanent residency straight away anyway. We've already covered that on another video. So the only other way is to get a business investor visa, which is specifically for this. It's specifically for people who want to come to Japan and start a business. The requirements of a business investor visa are pretty strict. The first one is that you must have experience running a similar business in another country. So you must be able to prove that you've had a similar business to the one you want to start here. So if you want to start an English school here, you need to be able to show that you have owned and operated a language school in another country, and you'll need all the paperwork to prove that. That you owned it and that you operated it for however many years, and you'll need to show all your tax documents and everything else to show that it was successful and that you made money. And there's no ways around this. Quite often with these things, you know, people ask questions and they ask more questions and more questions, and they're basically trying to find out if they can get around it, or they can sort of, you know, twist the truth so that they can get away with it or something, and you won't. Japanese immigration, as we've said before, is really strict, and they're not silly, and they will expect to see, you know, believable, authentic documentation, and they could well check it too. You know, they have the ability to check with, you know, a whole range of other countries regarding income and tax and all that sort of stuff. So they have reciprocal agreements with a lot of other countries where they can just ask your country. So if you say you earned $100,000 a year or $200,000 a year operating a language school, they can contact your country and ask them if it's true, and you know, they can do all that. So it's got to be true, in other words. So you have to legitimately have operated a similar business in another country. So whether that be a language school or whatever business it is you're wanting to start here. If you want to start a business here as a whatever baker, you need to be able to prove that you've done that successfully in another country and made money doing it. The next requirement is that you need to employ 2 Japanese people full-time. So 2 Japanese staff full-time right from the beginning, so that you have to be able to, from day one, from the first day that you start trading, you need to employ 2 Japanese people full-time permanently. So you also need to have a business plan, proper business plan written with everything. So to show that you've researched the market that you're wanting to get into, and that you know that there's going to be enough customers there for you, and that you're going to be able to, you know, get the money from them for whatever it is, and prove that you're going to be profitable taking into consideration, you know, all the costs, your rent and your 2 permanent Japanese staff and your own income and everything else. So you need a really believable, credible business plan, which probably have to get translated into Japanese. Most of this stuff is going to have to be in Japanese because, you know, it just probably has to be, because most of the people who look at your documents in an immigration don't speak English or other languages. Most of them just speak Japanese, so all this will have to be given to them in Japanese. So create a business plan, and what's the other thing? Oh, and you also need enough cash. You need to be able to prove that you have enough cash already to support this venture. So for the first, you know, to cover all your setup costs with renting a premises and all the rest of it, or whatever setup costs are involved, you know, with the wages for those 2 staff and for your income for yourself and everything else, for probably at least 6 months, you know, assuming, because they'll assume, the immigration department will assume that you won't make any money for the first 6 months at least, maybe a year, so they'll expect you to show them that you've got enough cash to cover all that. So, you know, you're looking at a lot of cash. The people that have sent us emails at different times about this, and, you know, some of them have told us a bit about their plans, and there's just no way. You know, somebody who's you know, worked somewhere as a baker or as an English teacher somewhere, and they want to come to Japan and start a business, they've got $20,000 or something. As you can see, there's just no way that's going to happen. So you'd need a lot of cash to cover all those wages and all those setup costs and everything. So if you can jump through all those hurdles, then the first thing you have to do is to go to the consulate or the embassy in your country and present them with all that documentation and the appropriate application form, and if they approve it, then you can go ahead and do it. But it's not a common way for people to come here at first. It's pretty uncommon, as you can imagine. It's pretty difficult. But if you did manage to jump through all those hoops and you managed to achieve all that, as far as actually starting a business in Japan, if you had a really high level of Japanese, written Japanese and spoken Japanese, you just need an accountant then. Just need an accountant to help you with the setup and everything else. And there's a few ways. You can do it as a sole trader, where you don't have to set up a company. Or there's a few different levels of company setup that you have to do that range from, you know, a few $100s to set up to a few $1,000s. And you just have an accountant to set all that up for you. If your level of Japanese wasn't good enough, and, you know, to do business like stuff like this in Japanese, you need a pretty good level. If you weren't up to that, you'd need to have an English-speaking accountant to help you with it all. So they do exist, English-speaking accountants. We've actually got some on the English-friendly playlist, on the English-friendly directory. There's some English-speaking Japanese accountants, which are worth their weight in gold, because the Japanese tax system and the way it's administered is pretty messy. So an English-speaking accountant is valuable, you know, if you can find one. So yeah, there it is, basically. Hopefully that addresses the questions. This isn't the most common questions we get about visas. Is usually related to people wanting to come here on a working visa, and I've already covered that. But there is some people ask us about this one quite often when they've tried all other avenues and they're running out of ideas. And what if I start my own business? You know. So hopefully this will make the picture a bit clearer as relation to that. So anyway, hope those people have found this useful. More videos coming soon.